Hi there everybody, this mess on the old bed, this is the aftermath of the Tour de Mont Blanc. What I thought I'd do is go through and give you a bit of a lowdown on some of the items I actually substituted out at the last moment, bits and pieces I've added, and also what worked and what didn't work. So what I might do is start with trekking poles. I took these Lecky Kumbus with the speed locks on them. Awesome, worked really well. Not the lightest of walking poles, but I replaced these were a replacement for the Black Diamond Trail Pros I had or something from my mate Angus. Just didn't find them as robust as these don't tend to flex as much, so I was hoping in the future that these would work well with the Hex Peak tent. So stay tuned. I've got going to make an adapter out of some carbon fibre for these. So yep, these worked well, comfortable. Not, as I said, not the lightest, but they're nice and robust, which is what we're after. So yep, so that was a good thing. The pack, the old Boreas Buttermilks 55. Really impressed with this. With the modifications, if you look at my other review about it on mods that I did to it by stiffening up the hip belt, it worked very well. We're looking sort of weight wise, we probably had up to about 12 kilos, we think. We didn't have scales with us all the time, but about looking at what we had before we left and sort of how much water we weigh in foods, probably 12 to 13 kilos at the heaviest. And it carried it very well. I didn't have any sore spots really on the back or anything like that. The only thing that I managed to break on it was my own fault. I stood on the buckle. So I managed to crack the buckle, but that actually didn't. That was sort of like halfway through. And then just to snap that in half by standing on it. So that's not really wear and tear. That's more use to error. But, I mean, it still functioned, so that was fine. I'm still, the top section of this is still a bit stupid, and I just have to live with it at the moment, because I've been thinking about what I can do to change the top of it. Yeah, I like the pockets. Pockets are actually quite good. I kept sort of my camera and stuff and bits and pieces in the hip pockets here, and I used my little squirrel pouch in the front. I actually put my sun cream and lip balm and some snacks and stuff in there, so that actually worked quite well as well. I am thinking of basically using this as a pattern to make a lighter pack out of either ripstop Dyneema or maybe pushing the boat out and making something out of Cuban fibre. So that's probably a few months away sort of project. So maybe stay tuned to that. But in the meantime, it's a great little pack. I really do like it, but as I said, you have to do these modifications on it to make it any decent. So swap the frame out and have the hip belt a bit stiffened. Little sit mat, that was really good. Used that all the time on rest stops and stuff. Pulled the old sit mat out. So that's kind of, I mean, it weighs, I haven't actually weighed it, but I'd say it must be under about 5 or 6 grams, so it's worth the effort to take that. That worked well. Took me over waterproof over trousers. Never wore them. Didn't rain enough or was cold enough to have those, but obviously going into a mountain environment you needed them anyway. My OMM Cypher Smock. Good old beast. Starting to show a bit of wear and tear now, but great. I put that on instead of a windproof. I used that like a windproof, and there was a few occasions on some of the passes that we went over. Was cold and windy, so that actually worked quite well as well. So that was the way forward. I did have a hooded thermal top, which I don't have out here at the moment. I think I would have shown that to you if you looked at the gear reviews before I left. That worked quite well, but I kind of thought on a couple of occasions that I should have take my arm warmers, because they're just more versatile to take them on off when I was walking, because I do get quite hot. Most of the time I just stayed in a wicking t-shirt. As I said, the odd occasion I might have had to put on a thermal top and a windproof, but actually walking wise, nothing else. So that's sort of how warm it was, t-shirt and shorts. One of the things I did substitute out was I had a Montaigne prism jacket. I never really searched for that sort of lightweight Primaloft layer that fits me well. I bought the Prism second hand. That was actually a replacement for a Fireball smock, which I really liked, but it had no hood, and I wanted to go to hood. So this is the Fireball jacket. So it has a kind of a knotty hood on it, and I just found this a little bit lighter than the Prism. It's got a lighter outer material. This is quantum, whereas the Prism is microlight, and it's got a more substantial hood. But for the times I wear it, it's all sort of around camp or maybe to bed, that kind of stuff. So that didn't really bother me too much. But this just fitted me better, so I substituted that out. I swapped. My mate Angus got the Prism, so you might see him in the photos when I do the actual review of the trip. He's wearing that jacket, I'm wearing this jacket. This is like 300 and something grams, so I saved a bit of weight there. It was more fit than anything else. It fitted me a lot better. One of the other such things I popped in at the last moment also was an umbrella. This is a Euro shrim, they call them, swing. If you know anything about Go Light, the old Go Light brand, this is basically their Go Light umbrella. It's got a silver reflective coating on the outside. I use this quite a bit actually. I was sort of humming and hawing whether it would be the best thing to take, but it's actually a really good umbrella. Do like it. It's a decent length in the shaft of it. It's a decent size. It's really light. It's 230 grams, so it's not a heavy beast at all. I used it on some of the sunny days, like rest stops, put it up and keep the sun off me. Also strapped it to my pack. I've made up a little system to put it to my shoulder strap. Got some funny looks and people taking photos, so probably end up on Facebook or Instagram with that on. But it was amazing. It did lower the temperature underneath quite a fair bit. It meant you could take your hat off, walk without a hat. In the rain, it was invaluable. Getting out of tent, going to the toilet, that kind of stuff. It's just perfect. You don't have to put a raincoat on, especially for the weather we had. It wasn't particularly windy. When it did rain, it was sort of thunderstorms and rain came straight down when we were out in it. So on a couple of occasions, I attached that to my shoulder strap and actually wore that while I was walking. The only downside with it is it's great on the flat and going downhill. Not too good if you're going uphill because it kind of obscures your vision somewhat, so I have to work on how to change that, but inevitably it was awesome. Love it. I would definitely take it, especially for that time of year. I definitely take it again. It's worth the 230 grams all up. We took some freeze-dried meals, so in the end we took 4 freeze-dried meals. We had 2 Mountain House and then 2, I can't remember, I think it's Adventure Foods ones that we got from Go Outdoors. So after eating both of those, wouldn't buy Mountain House again. The Adventure Foods ones were the same price. There was more in them. They were a little bit heavier, but the food quality was better. It just was like proper food. This is a bit more like mush. So that's one you're living in. So we've got 4 meals. We ended up coming back with 1. So the food on the Tour de Mont Blanc, there's lots of places you can get food. I mean, this was just for us in case we want to do some wild camping, or we had a day where we just didn't make it to camp or something like that. So we did use them a lot in the more expensive parts of the tour, which was like Switzerland. Switzerland was just insanely expensive. We got just a handful of groceries, like a 6-pack of beer, a bag of crisps, a tin of ravioli, and a few other bits and pieces that cost us the equivalent of about £31. So that was insane. So we did end up eating a lot of these in Switzerland. Also, there's one campground, Le Fouilly, which is basically nothing there. There's a tiny little farm shop that's down the road that sells bugger all, and then you have to go into like further into town and pay massive prices for restaurant meals. So yeah, we did use those. They were, well, as I said, the Adventure Food one's better than the Mountain House. That's our theory on that. Right, whoops, moving over. Let's see, it's all about sleep system. My little modified cloud cover, Alpkit cloud cover was good. Temperatures got down a couple of times to around about sort of, well, my thermometer said about 7, but it probably got a bit lower than that, probably more like 5. And this worked well. There was only basically one occasion I put my coat on, but that was more because I went outside and got a little bit cold, went out for a wee in the night, came back and just left it on. So I'm very impressed in that. It does possibly need to be a little bit wider to make it perfect. But again, I'm thinking of pushing the boat out and making a super light box wall quilt that will pack down sort of about this size, but be warmer and actually have it without a open foot box. This one here has a draw cord on the bottom. Going to possibly make a mummy foot and just be done with it. So, but yeah, that works perfect. I mean, for the sort of walking, sort of 2-3 season walking, it worked out superbly. It's quite light. It was cheap, as I said, and the modification's pretty easy. I think it's about just creeping up to 750 grams, I think, like that. So that's pretty good. So yeah, I'd take that again. That worked out well. As I said, temperatures didn't get down super cold, so that's something to think of as well. Time of year we went. Another thing I actually threw in as well is my Nature Hike inflatable pillow. If you haven't seen these are kind of a rip-off of, I think, Xped's version of it. These are damn sight cheaper. I think I got this one on AliExpress for about £6. So I was humming and hawing. I did take my little stuff sack with a fleece on one side and the sawn nylon on the other. This is basically, you turn it inside out and it becomes a stuff sack, and turn it the other way, it becomes a pillow. But one of the reasons why I didn't take this is because I wasn't taking much in the way of spare clothing. I didn't have a lot to stick in it, so I was just worried that wasn't going to be that comfortable. So I threw the old Nature Hike in. It's not the lightest, I think it's 80 grams without the stuff sack, but worked really well. Nice comfortable night's sleep. I slept like a baby most nights. So yeah, it was worth that little bit extra weight. Definitely a go. I'd make amended just to take that next time if I go again. Right, what I also did is this is a like make-believe silk liner I got off eBay. I was thinking I was going to use that just as a liner inside my quilt if it got cold and just to protect the neo air. But what it turned out to be, I sewed the side up on it because it had like a half of it open kind of palaver, and put my neo air inside it, so that protect the neo air from obviously the grime from me, and also the grime from inside the tent. But what it also allowed me to do, because it's got a mummy thing here, I could put my pillow in it, and I wasn't chasing the pillow around the tent floor all night. So that again was quite a good thing. The only downside with it didn't for some reason make the neo air squeak more than normal. Made a lot more noise. So every time I moved over, it sounded like I was in a Dutch sex shop in a squeaky condom. So it made a lot of noise, but it's worth it. It did keep my neo air clean, kept all the grime off it. Was nice to lay on when it was hot instead of laying on the actual neo air. Not the lightest, it's about 120 or 130 grams I think it was, so it's a bit of a hefty beast for what it is, but it did serve a purpose. So that was an extra thing I put in at last minute, basically. I was humming and hawing whether to take it or not, so yeah, there we go. Right, the tent. The good old green Axeman cheapy trekking pole tent. Super impressed with this. It was cheap. It's not the best build quality. I don't think there's any panel that's straight. But it kept me dry. It kept me stone dry. It kept me drier than my Hex Peak. There's basically no condensation in the inner because it's got a mesh inner. That worked very well to keep the moisture out of it. It doesn't have any vents on the fly, which I thought was going to be a problem, but turns out that's not a problem at all. The fly did get quite wet because a lot of the places we were camping on grass and stuff, and it would be humid, and the condensation off the grass, the actual moisture coming off the grass and such like, made it quite heavy. So you would soak up a lot of moisture, but what was surprising, we get to camp and throw the tent up, and within less than 10 minutes in the sun it was dry. So fully impressed. The only little thing I had with it is I managed to partly pull out one of the inner's tie-out points by being a bit too rough with it, trying to get the inner tight. So what happened with that is I just sewed it up when I was out there. It wasn't catastrophic failure, but it's just something to look at. Again, it's a reflection of the quality of it. The other thing I found with it, it was a little bit hit and miss to get the right separation between the inner and the outer. That's generally because the inner on this is not perfectly sewn. So I would probably just make the inside a little bit smaller still, because I've done that once when I got it. It was really baggy on the inside and was basically just touching the inner touching the outer. So I sewed it up. That gave me some more clearance, but probably needs a little bit more sewing. But apart from that, amazing. I'm actually thinking of possibly taking this and taking a pattern off the fly and making it out of something like really exotic, like Cuban fiber, and make it really, really light. Because this is an outstanding little tent. There was definitely enough room for me in it. They say this is a two-man tent, but there's no way in hell I'd look at doing that. Just not enough room for two people. So, but for one person, it's luxury. 1.1 kilos, cheap as chips, under 100 quid. Can't really go wrong. So yeah, that was a winner. Loved it. I mean, it stood up to a thunderstorm. We had about, I think it was the second or third night in. We wild camped, and there was a humdinger thunderstorm. It was just howling. The wind was blowing around, and we're all thinking it's going to fall down, but it was actually fine. The other thing, actually, quickly, is that with the trekking pole up and all tensioned, when you sit in the tent, let's see if I can describe this accurately, you can sit in the tent and actually put your head against the pole and almost sit upright like a chair in it. That's easy to describe. So you put the head end pole, you can kind of lean against it because it's braced by the guy ropes, which is quite cool. So yeah, fully impressed with that. Yeah, loved it. Worth the money. Which is no money at all, really. Right. So, what else? Took me a little microfiber towel. That was only just adequate, which I knew it was going to be. Just enough to dry myself. If the weather conditions had been worse and you didn't get the dry, I would have been standing around in most of these campgrounds shivering, waiting for me to dry. But that did an adequate job. We'll definitely take it again in some time, but if it's going in winter or a bit more inclement weather, I need something a bit bigger. So, yeah, so that worked quite well. Took a bandana, never used it, not taking one again. That works well. Socks. Now, I've got these Hilly socks. A little bit of a fail. Kind of yes, kind of no. They're comfy socks. They've got merino on them, so they do wick well. They do dry quite well. I think I underestimated how much padding I would need. So on some days, now this sounds excessive, I was wearing 3 pairs. So I was wearing my 5-finger Ingenie socks, and then 2 of these over the top. So yeah, I probably needed more padding in hindsight, mainly because with a few of the road sections, I was getting some hot spots in the bottom of my feet, and I generally get 1 blister on my little toe, which is just a common occurrence, which is just part of the course. So it doesn't matter what I wear. I get that, it's just the shape of how my foot moves. So apart from that, there's only foot issues I had. So a couple of hot spots, I think that was on like the 5th day, and because we did a lot of road walking that day, and it was very, very hot, and so your feet were getting hot, and it's that repetitive clunking up and down on the road. But after a little bit of foot care, so just airing them out, drying them out, and wearing a couple of pairs of socks, that problem went away. So yeah, so that was a little bit of a schoolboy blunder. I'll probably go with something a bit more padding. These are quite thin. You can't quite see. There's not a lot of padding on them. So, yeah. So we'll go down that road again. Right. Hydration system. This little tube that I took. So that was it. Just screws onto the water bottle. Excellent. Really was surprised at how well it worked. The slight operator error was I didn't think I needed it comes with a spring that goes on here. I couldn't see why you needed that spring until about the 4th day I was using it, when it put it in because you put it upside down and you pack like that with a bottle, so your bottle comes up this way and then it goes like that and it cuts off the water supply. So the spring was there to stop it from kinking, so I should have left the spring on. So duh. And the only other thing, which is kind of a standard with these things, is that this end will come off. I did try gluing it on before I left, but it didn't take. So, but apart from that, it's such a lightweight system. 2 1.5 litre water bottles, some mineral water bottles. That's all I took, and they lasted the whole trip. I threw them away, recycled them at the end. Fantastic. Really was impressed. Beats a bladder hands down. When you've got side pockets, you can throw your water bottles in. So really light. I think it's like what did I say? 40 or 50 grams for this. And then it comes with 2 different bottle ends. I just got it off eBay. I think I bought that water bottle hose or something like that. So yeah, so that's an endorsement. Love that. That'll be going on another trip again. That's kind of like the death knell for my Camelback when it comes to walking. Because of the bottles, it's a lot easier. If they get a bit manky or get holdy, you obviously just recycle them. And they're pretty easy to get. Like all through the tour, there was plenty of water bottles to buy. So yeah, that's a go. So yeah, that's a keeper. Right, shoes. These Caldinas from Adidas. Really light, pretty comfy. Got a bit of wear on them. Then you can see that I managed to wear the stitching out. That's probably the way I walk. A few bits and pieces, and one of them kind of looked like there was a hole starting. Can't quite make that out. I had to take the laces off the front, but that's just me. I've got quite wide feet, so that's a bit of a problem. With a bit of road walking on them, I go through shoes quite a bit. You can see there's a bit of wear on them. But apart from that, they're good. They're nice and light. They dry really quickly when they get wet. Comfy, got enough shock absorption. Pretty cool. Yeah, we'll just see how long it lasts. I'm going to have to dab some stuff on there. I'm thinking of turning these into my winter shoes, so I'll actually sew some gaiters on them. So, yeah, good. Right, also made a couple of inflation bags. So instead of taking the big X-Ped dry bag thingy, I just made up a couple of these, and this is just, I got the idea off the internet. I didn't make this up. So this is actually a Coke bottle end that's been ground down, cut off and ground down. And then this, I made two of them. This one actually uses, this is a fitting off a platypus I had with an O-ring inside. And that just goes on your valve. So you get your thermarest valve, and that goes onto there like that. And then you just inflate the bag. Worked well. The only downside is the bag is a bit small, and it then doesn't really become a dual use item, although you can put stuff in the bag, man. That's not the end of the world, having a little hole like that in the bottom. Not doing river crossings or anything. So yeah, it worked well. I just need a bigger bag really. And then that halved my inflation bag weight. So I think these about 20 odd grams, so that made a difference in the long run. A little bit counted. I took this cheap 6-in-1 altimeter, compass, blah blah blah. It was alright. That was a gamble. It was only like about 20 quid or something crazy like that. It was helpful to get us an idea of temperature. As you can see, I put a big dent in the screen. Not that flash for altitude, because I can work out a way of setting the altitude, so you've got a reference point. But yeah, hey. It was kind of a little bit of a toy. It weighed something, so I should have left it behind. Took my little Sylvia compass. Didn't use that, so spent a lot of time using my rocking you around there. A lot of times using my camera. So the two battery packs. We caught this old Unki one. Unki. Don't know what the name of these bloody Chinese things are. That was an 8,000 milliamp hour battery pack, and then also this Anchor one, that was a 10,000. So they work very well. Obviously you need to take an adapter plug going through France and let's see all the rest of them, but this did work to keep my phone charged, because that was my primary way of taking photos and the like. So going with that. This one here, don't know whether I'd take it again. This cable system I've got, which comes with this little dinky cable, and there's I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but there's a little recess that this goes into here to plug it in. It's just a bit stupid. It's great that you've got a cable, but the problem is that cable's really short, so when you're trying to charge something, you're trying to dangle this, when you're trying to charge the pack, you're dangling it from a plug point, trying to balance it on the plug point, because the cable's only small, and then there's no cable that actually goes into that recess. So yeah, a bit of a fail there. This one, it's a little bit lighter, bigger capacity, and you've got your standard USB ports and micro USB, so that actually worked better. I'd take that again. That's a great piece of kit. And the Anchor stuff I've got a couple of these battery packs. Got a big 26,000 milliamp hour one. Quality bits of kit. Really like them. They seem to charge everything, so I'll be sticking with those in the future. So that's just an interesting insight. My little flap cap that I took with the little neck thingy on it, that worked well. As you can see, I haven't actually got around to washing it. This is all the salt still on it. Great. Take it on and off. I did cock up and forgot to sew one of the Velcro on, which promptly fell off, but it didn't impede the performance of it at all. So that was a good piece. That just kept the back of my neck from getting fried, and it meant I didn't have to have a big floppy hat. The little electronics I took, did use my little earplugs a little bit. They were, well, the head torch was kind of nearly a waste of time because it doesn't really get dark, and we didn't have to do much in the dark. I think I might have used it about 3 times. So in the future I probably wouldn't take this. I might just take my little X1 for what it's worth. It's about all you need. So yeah, I could have saved myself a little bit of weight there. Like anything though, you'll probably leave it behind, and next time you need it. The little cooker and pot, my coffee cup, my coffee beaker that's been turned into a camping pot, that worked superbly well. One of the things, we were just under the impression that we'd do freeze dry and then eat whatever food on the way, but there was a lot of times where we actually had to have stuff out bought from the supermarket, so ravioli, pasta, that kind of stuff that we were eating. So bigger pot was actually a good idea. If I had been stuck with my little mug that I usually take, that's just good enough to boil enough water for doing a freeze dry meal, I would have been up shit creek for cooking. So yeah, bigger pot was definitely very useful. It kept the cost down. One of the other things I probably could have gone differently is the two Mont Blanc Guidebook. If I was to do it again, I would cut the pages out. I took the whole thing. It's bloody heavy, and I probably looked at 20 pages out of the whole book, which is what I needed for route finding and just information about destinations and stuff. So in the future, chopping that up, because that's a lot of weight I could have saved there, 200 or 300 grams, which is quite a bit. So yeah, next time I downloaded it onto my phone, which I found less than optimal. It wasn't as good as having the book. Basically because you're trying to look at, generally it's the middle of the day, it's bright, it's clear sunshine, you're trying to read your phone, you're trying to make sure your phone's got enough battery to do pictures and video and all this sort of stuff. So you're kind of a little bit nursing along your battery power. And I also use the phone a lot for Google Maps, because a lot of what we found with this book is that, yes, it does tell you the routes, but at the end it's a bit kind of like, well, you get to this town and you kind of, these are these places and that's it. It doesn't give you much more. So we found a lot of actual camping grounds that weren't in this. It seems to be quite light on the information about camping. It's more about the refuges, hotels, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I was using my phone a hell of a lot more to route find in the towns and in the cities and how to get to campsites. What we did find is in Switzerland, there didn't seem to be, they would have like one sign, this is a campground, and then you could walk for a K, 2 Ks, and there wouldn't be any other signs, so you're kind of like fishing around trying to work out where things were. So the signage wasn't the best when it came to the campgrounds for some reason. I'm not sure why that is. So the Tour de Mont Blanc itself is quite well marked. We never really got lost wandering around it. So yeah, that's just one to consider. Last but not least, the old Neo Air X-Lite Extra Large. Glad I took this. It made my nights like sleeping on a plush princess's bed. Didn't have any failures in it. It seemed to stand up to the repeated use, so it probably had 13 nights or more of use on it. Seems to be holding up quite fine. So yeah, maybe I got the last couple I had with issues with it. Might have just been a bung batch or something. Something that slipped through quality control. So yeah, I'm glad I took it. It's well worth it. I could have saved weight and took a foam mat, but I probably wouldn't have anywhere near the same sort of sleep that it had. Just before I sign off, the one other thing I had was this little OTG cable that plugged into my phone, and I had a couple of hard drives, USB thumb drives, just in case I ran out of storage. What I found around the tour was that I ended up taking just photos. So the review that I'll do of the actual trip is just going to be a montage of photos with some voiceover, because I found doing the video was just a bit of a ball ache really, and to get any sort of footage, unless I really had a decent camera and took my time, I was there to walk it, I wasn't really there just to film everything. So I just ended up taking photos, and that was just easy. So I didn't actually end up using all my storage, which was a surprise. Alright, so that gives you a bit of idea. That's the idea of what I substituted, some extra things I took. And yeah, so apart from stepping on my buckle and tearing one of the little tie outs of my tent out from being a doofus, everything survived with flying colours, which is interesting because a lot of the big trips like this I've been on in the past, I've had issues and failures, and there's nothing really in that stack there that I can say, oh, I really hate and I want to get rid of, and it was rubbish and I'm never going to take it again. It all actually worked very well. It must have been all those hours of stressing and having a look and weighing stuff and reprocessing what I was going to take. So yeah, so as I said, there's a couple of things I can save weight on. I'm going to look at packs, shelters, and sleeping systems. Although I've pared them down quite considerably to what I have been using, I think I can go even lighter. Bumped into a couple of Americans with some Hyperlight mountain gear packs, which looked interesting, but we can't really get them here in the UK. Unless you import them, it's going to cost you a fortune. And they were pretty minimalistic, which is what I like. So I might be looking at trying to make a copy, but I'll use the Buttermilks as a template, so to speak. And I'm just going to trim it down so it's got not a lot of weight in it. And then my sleep system, I can lighten up a little bit on that. I think I can save around about maybe a kilo, maybe a kilo and a half maximum on that load. So yeah, we'll see. So stay tuned. There'll be a few more make your own gear videos coming up. I've got some other bits and pieces to do. Also been making hammock stuff. So we're going to get out and do a couple of hammock trips. So that'll be interesting to see what we come up with that, because I need to make an undercoat and a tarp and a few other things. So yeah, so remember to give the old subscribe button a bit of a slap. There'll still be more interesting videos coming. I'm going to do one of the actual tour itself, and also about camping and what we did camping wise and where we camped and stuff, because there's not a lot on the internet about all that. So I just thought that might be useful for somebody. All right, so thank you very much, guys, and see you next time.